been an activist since I was about 14, 15 years old. So when I learned about I remember it clearly the day that I was in doula training and I learned about the rates for Black women dying. That was it. That's all I had to know to take action. And so midwifery is not so much a calling for me, but it's a direct action.
My work in the world, I knew had to have meaning, and my journey is really just to provide access, knowing that we need access to providers in order to all the providers that we want to be and want to be attended to. We needed more access to those people, and so that was my commitment to be a provider, to do the work in order to be a provider, because we can't. It has to come from without and from within. We can empower our families to seek out birth justice, but if the providers are all, not, if there's no providers there to usher that, then that's the imbalance. And so I think that as we grow the community that's conscious and aware of birth options, we also have to have the providers to meet them. And that is my commitment to birth justice.
I call it rolling in self-love, where myself and one of the doulas that I mentor, we go and we see the mothers just for a check-in. We go and we drop off supplies, PPE in some cases, masks, gloves, hand sanitizer, essential oils, butters, soaps, teas, you name it, just to have a quick little 5-10 minute chat to make sure that moms are okay and they're not suffering too harshly with being on punishment, as many have exclaimed that they feel.
I know that within the state of New York, Ancient Song and myself and other advocates have worked on collectively really getting the voice of the people involved in the legislative process. And so getting them to understand, how bills are created and what does it mean to, engage with the legislators? What does it mean to lobby? What does it mean to, to become an advocate, to understand that when individuals are making these bills, they sometimes have no context for who you are, what your community is, and how you choose to function, and how those quote unquote unintentional consequences that come up by the well-intentioned individuals, how they have a dramatic effect in the lives of those who are considered to be marginalized.
What happens is that you have, I won't even use the term well-intended individuals, because I don't know that they always are. I think that there's still a significant amount of control that comes into play with that, and in particular when you're talking about predominantly white legislators who think that they're doing something to be able to help save us without actually consulting or having conversations with us and those of us that are impacted on a daily basis.
Black birth workers have never really had dominance over their labor, like from a historical standpoint. And so even in the transitioning of the professionalization of the doula and the midwife, I feel like we have always kind of been responsive to things that have happened around us versus us really taking full control over our destinies. And so through some of the things that I have learned in activism in terms of cooperative building, particularly because we have to live in America and ultimately America is a big business, I have really figured out that there's a certain level of having to engage and really unapologetically claim our own labor in order for us to really create a sustainable value in our society.
I spent countless days while my children were at school at the Georgia archives doing research on Georgia's midwives. And there's like boxes and boxes and vaults full of information that was in there. And it made me realize that there was a lot of traditional birthing customs and traditions that were lost along the years. Not only did we lose a lot of our culture during enslavement, but we lost a lot that was left over when our foremothers, our grandmothers, and our great grandmothers started having their babies in the hospital, and and that experience of birthing in the hospital was different from what our experiences are now. Ours, I mean, those that are conscious of intentional birthing, and those of our ancestors, meaning that a lot of our grandmothers were either anesthetized with either a spinal block or either a twilight, and they didn't have any memory of birth. And so the mother wit that would normally be passed down discontinued because our grandmothers didn't have a story to tell. And so it was then in my earlier years that I realized that I wanted to bring back to life those evidence-based traditional practices and customs from Africa, from the diaspora, and from any other traditional cultures around the world, and bring them back to life so that we can remember and so that we can incorporate those practices back into our birthing culture.